Hello everybody, Scott Golden here with a rare return to the Superstars of Wrestling review series. This is the 7th of January 1989. I think this might actually be one of the first shows I ever watched, because I remember the show closing Angle. I know I went to my first show in March of 89. I think it was the first week in March 3rd or 4th or something like that. So the idea that my first show would be a few weeks or a few months before that makes sense to my brain. Anyway, we open with Demolition, Mike Sharp, and Dusty Brooks. At this point, Demolition baby faces after turning at the Survivor Series. They are moving towards the WrestleMania 5 showdown with the Powers of Pain. Of course, the Powers of Pain feud started around Survivor Series of the previous year, 1988, and will continue here. Axe and Smash are your Demolition members. Of course, Crush not coming along till summer of 1990, so it's just the two-man team for the time being. Mike Sharp and Rusty Brooks are the enhancement talent opponents. Lots of brawling, very basic stuff, not anything too terribly interesting to write home about here. We kind of see Axe continue to go on a bit of a warpath here. Tag off to Smash Powers of Pain with Mr. Fuji, talk in an inset promo about the damage they want to do, double clothesline, and the Demolition Decapitator within the next couple of minutes lead to the victory for the babyface face-painted team. Ultimately, kind of move forward there, and then we go to an update with Gene Okerlund. Big John Studd, a couple of weeks away from his return at the Royal Rumble in, I believe, actually the following Sunday, so about 8, 9, 10 days away, something like that, on this airing. And so Studd talks about being the only giant, the only real tough man, and lifting weights, doing some squats, pretty intense stuff if you ask me, but he certainly is not the least bit worried about anything to do with taking care of his issues there. And ultimately, Ted DiBiase is, your next guy up. He faces off against Scott Casey. For some reason, Pete Sanchez is Jake Roberts. That's why I had him written down. Scott Casey finishing up with the WWF a couple of weeks later here. Nothing really major in that regard. A couple of tie-ups there. Hard shots by DiBiase, and they managed to brawl. Casey gets a small advantage. Of course, DiBiase alongside Virgil goes into a non-sequential match, I guess you'd say, with Brutus the Barber Beefcake at WrestleMania that has a double count-out finish, so no real finish there. DiBiase, of course, sends his man into the buckle and manages to do everything he needs to do in that regard. Again, a tie-up and the side headlock there. DiBiase manages a power slam along the way, 1, 2, and pulls the man up. We then lead to the $1 Million Dream and the victory for DiBiase. We go to the event center with Sean Mooney. Bushwhackers talk about Hogan being in there, Macho being in there, Powers of Pain being in there, and then start forearming each other because they realize they could have to do battle with, in fact, each other. So then Rugged Ronnie Garvin, who I believe is making his debut within a couple of weeks of this, maybe at the Rumble itself, but talks about not being afraid to fight and knock people out at the Royal Rumble contest. Then we see Bobby the Brain Heenan, King Haku, continuation there. And Heenan talks about the battle for the crown. Harley Race and Haku. Winner of that match at the Rumble will be the king. And Heenan says he will bow to Race if Race wins. This obviously doesn't make Haku very happy, and he lashes out at this concept. Jake Roberts and Pete Sanchez, as mentioned. Sanchez does get an arm drag, but Jake goes right to work on his adversary. Tie up both men, and a hard shot by Roberts, who manages to hook up a hammerlock and hard back elbow there. And again, kind of goes around. Again to the back elbows, lots of stuff, and ultimately that's where things go as far as that is concerned. Sanchez hits a couple of shots and gets a couple of tackles along the way and goes right into the process here. Clothesline, and Roberts nails a hard shot along the way there. Going for and hitting, in fact, the DDT, and he gets the victory. Jake Roberts' DDT, not a big surprise, but one of the most vital and useful finishing maneuvers at the time. Big Boss Man, still a member of the Twin Towers, against Bill Monkey. Monkey, of course, a big deal in Jim Crockett Promotions, of course, the WCW sale, just a little bit before this, and Boss Man goes to town on Monkey. Monkey does get a couple of attempted moves, but a pop-up spine buster on Monkey is not good for him. Running kick by the Boss Man, and he also hits the sidewalk slam after taking his man to the outside and getting a little bit more brawling in on him there. And then we go to back to the event center. Mr. Perfect manages to go that way, and he talks about being the perfect guy for the Royal Rumble, talks about being the perfect guy, period, and certainly has every bit of information. Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase also in the Rumble. Of course, he ends up buying the final number, but Macho Man Randy Savage talks about being the champion and still walking out the winner, not necessarily being intimidated by that process. The Brainbusters, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, probably my favorite tag team of all time, maybe the Rockers. They kind of switch there. George South and Tim Horner provide their opposition for the day. Horner, who came in about 83, 84. The Rockers do an inset promo talking about wanting to take the Busters down and finally get rid of them once and for all. That's pretty assertive, aggressive there, but it happens. And again, goes for the tackle. Roll through. Anderson hits his opponent pretty briskly there. Kick to the midsection, and again, Anderson with the Irish whip, and roll up and over the back. Head scissors takeover, almost like a Rana by Horner, who is still in the run of a good part of his career here. Of course, he goes off to Smoky Mountain for a couple of years in 92, 93, and gets more of a main deal there. Arn Anderson hits the spine buster, a move that he eventually or inevitably invented, and goes for the tackle. Tully Blanchard comes back in, some punches, some kicks, and eventually the spike pile driver by the Brainbuster is going to get things done. There's talk of on the Brother Love show. Brother Love, of course, thinks that Outlaw Ron Bass, who's going to face Beefcake later that night, it appears, on Saturday night's main event, getting ready for the first Royal Rumble in a hair match, and Beefcake talks about maybe giving him a mohawk, shaving him bald, whatever the case may be. We go to a Royal Rumble report. Bad News Brown talks about the Rumble. He's not the least bit intimidated by that process in any event, and he kind of is charming off and jumping off here. Ultimately, we see that, in fact, he manages to, kind of talk about winning the Rumble. Hercules talks about the same. Bad News basically saying he's fought in fights like this before. It's no big deal. Hercules talks about his strength being the reason he would win. Andre the Giant, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan, talks about the wars with Jake Roberts, but also winning the Rumble. Rick Rude does an inset promo about the upcoming pose down with the Ultimate Warrior at the Rumble, and basically implies that he's not the least bit worried, Warrior cuts a non-sequential promo, big surprise there, and basically talks about the Warriors dictating his win at the Rumble. Then we move on to the main event of the program with about 10 minutes remaining, maybe a little less. The Hart Foundation against the team of the Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine. This actually sets up their WrestleMania match that goes about 3 to 5 minutes. Very short match for Mania. The Anvil, Jim Neidhart, and Greg Valentine do a lot of battle, and then Bret Hart comes in, hits an atomic drop on Valentine. Valentine tags out, and again, we go to the inverted atomic drop, body slams, and the like by Hart. Hart manages to do what he can, and get things going in his general direction. Hard shot by Hart to the midsection, and a roll up there. Kick off attempted, and Hart is certainly doing everything he can to get things going. A inverted backbreaker by Hart. Hart tries to go to the second rope on the inside, hitting the elbow drop. Of course, Jimmy Hart on the outside, causing distraction, and Bret Hart catches the Honky Tonk Man with a back kick, but there is a jump from behind by Valentine. Valentine not playing by the rules by any stretch of the imagination. Honky Tonk Man takes his man down and goes right to town on the guy. Meanwhile, Valentine does everything imaginable to get things going in his general direction. Hard shots, and goes around and again. Back body drop and a big body slam by the Anvil. Anvil cleaning house on both guys here. And again, we go to hard shots there. Ultimately, the Anvil is in pretty strong contention for being a guy who is good to go here. Double whip together, and again, there we go. Meanwhile, the Anvil manages to set the Honky Tonk Man up for the heart attack, but Valentine runs back in, causes a distraction for a minute or two, and eventually the Honky Tonk Man grabs his guitar, nails Bret in the back of the head, knocking him unconscious. This sets up their WrestleMania run, and then of course we go to the final deal, the final run here, where Coco Ware talks about being in the Rumble. He's not too convincing. And then they talk about the six-man tag. The six-man tag, Duggan and the Hart Foundation against the Rougeaus and Dino Bravo. Of course, Bravo and the Rougeaus flanked with two managers, one being Frenchie Martin for Bravo, and Jimmy Hart for the Rougeau brothers. Of course, Duggan and the Harts are a temporary team there. And we go to the close of the program. We'll be back with more WCW Saturday Night right after this.